And the media yesterday, where President William Ruto explained or tried to explain why his administration is where it is in the wake of pressure sustained by Gen Z over the finance bill of 2024 and the aftermath of the protests as well. Ruto spoke on that growing move to have him resign under the hashtag Ruto must go, which he says is a constitutional right. But the president was at pains to explain many other things, including the cases of increasing abductions of Kenyans critical of his government. He was also at pains to explain the excessive use of force by police on harmful youth protesters in that live interview. So in studio with us for this conversation, as we analyze that interview, we have governance expert Rachel Omolo, as well as Honorable Chege Maura, who is the Secretary General of the County Assemblies Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you, and thank you so much for being with us here on New Dawn. Now, that interview was 1.5 hours long. Let me begin with you, Rachel. What were your thoughts on that media roundtable?
Thank you, and a very good morning. I think it was a little late that he's a bit remorseful. Though at the face of it, if you critically looked at his demeanor and how he spoke, he appeared not to be empathetic of the people, especially the families whose children lost their lives, and focused more, because that he mentioned quite a number of times, on the properties which were lost. So my view is that, yes, he spoke because of the pressure, but some of these things should have been avoided would he have listened to the Kenyans. I know we are going to discuss it in details, but I think he did not give Kenyans the answers which they were looking for. We were looking for a president who is going to restore hope, a president who is going to make us understand that at the face of it, he's remorseful for what had happened, a president who is feeling the people, but from the beginning of his talk to the very last bit, personally, I didn't feel him feeling us as Kenyans, feeling the young people. I want to talk to people. I want to make this happen. I'm looking forward to meeting 100 people. I'm looking forward to do this. I'm not telling you, I'm promising again that some of the issues that you're raising, I'm going to look into them, whereas some of these things are things that people have talked about every other meeting, every other day, but we are not seeing anything happening. If I may just say this one thing, if you look at the Finance Bill 2023-2024, which again became the genesis of the NADCO report. And we all know to date, the NADCO report is lying somewhere in a shelf. He's promising Kenyans that I'm calling again for another multi-sectoral meeting, another forum where I'm going to engage with you like we did last year.
Report, right?
Yes, and the NADCO report, we've not implemented not even an inch of it. We don't, actually, Kenyans don't even know where it ended. It's like that one was just to pacify you, to make you at least not be angry. We are doing something about it, and we are seeing the same attitude. But I'm doing something, you know. I want to be seen as though I am doing something. So he came out like, I'm a president, yes, I want to listen, but again, I'm the one in the driver's seat, so you should listen more to the destination I'm taking you, even though I know for sure that is not where you wanted to alight.
Okay,
yeah.
So Rachel brings in a very, very crucial point. So, Maura, let me begin with your thoughts on that interview. When we heard word that there would be a presidential roundtable, what were your expectations, and were they met after that roundtable?
Thank you, Michelle, for having me. First and foremost, let me say that from where I sit, you know, the hardest job in this country is to lead this country. The hardest job we have as a country is the #1 person. And so if you're the #1 person, it's upon you, first of all, to lead a nation, and with our diverse cultures and in our diverse thinking. Number 2, to protect its citizens, uphold the Constitution, and all those things jumbled up in one. So I, from the instance when I had, you know, when it was circulated that there will be a presidential table, I thought it was a good attempt to start from the president speaking to the nation. And I think the media did a good job by having maybe some of your best heavy hitters in that conversation, so that it didn't look like there is a narrative that, he's gotten a smooth way of having a very open and candid discussion with the nation. And so I think it was good. It was a good attempt, hard as it was. But then again, the pressure is real. The issues that we are facing are not starting now. They've been a pile-up. We've all been around when there is a huge build-up of youth unemployment, hard economic times, all these things building up. There was an attempt, of course, of trying to reorganize the facets of the Constitution through the BBI just before the current administration came in. And then when they came in, the NADCO, as Rachel is mentioning, and then again, a question, where did we start messing, or where did we start, as the deputy president said, where did the rain start beating us?
But Rachel brings in an important point, and it's on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. The title here says, "Why Gen Z Viciously Dismissed Ruto's Olive Branch for Dialogue." And as it stands, Gen Z had a section of Gen Z had an interview with the media, and they say they cannot trust a leadership that cannot be trusted. The emerging trend of abductions, for example, a government not in touch with the people's needs. They talk about the high cost of living, the unemployment. And so when Rachel brings in the issue of NADCO, and the very fact that NADCO was actually a generation of a standoff over the finance bill of 2023-2024. And after the NADCO report, which was meant to have a whole national face and inclusivity, we saw dialogue, we saw a report that was put together, and then nothing. There was no timelines when the implementation should have been done, and obviously then no goodwill. It was to pacify the maandamano then, and after it was pacified, there was no implementation. What is to convince the youth now that the promises being made are not just to pacify the current situation? And
like I said, the youth question has been a time bomb. It has been coming. We didn't know when, but it erupted. And so once we are here with the NADCO and with no timelines and all that, and then the Finance Bill 2023, remember, with the high cost of the housing levies and all those things, maybe we were a bit, or the government was a bit lax, or still didn't feel the magnitude of where the Kenyans were feeling pained. And so I think a good starting point is the president and also the ones with executive powers, first of all, to acknowledge and apologize where we've gotten ourselves to, and then now, what do we do? I think now coming to your question, what do we need to do? Number one is that the raft of issues that the Gen Zs had suggested, there are quick wins that we can have. I think the CASs, it's been a crossboard that the nation feels not very comfortable with that position. Number two, it has even gone to court. There's a huge debate around it, and I think if it's still an issue now, I think the president, I heard him here yesterday saying he's had that. I think he should concede on those things that are quick wins. The budgets to the First Lady and Second Lady and the Prime Cabinet Secretary's wives, scrap them. Those are quick wins. The others that need a bigger conversation, like the Finance Bill, when he considered and returned it to Bunge, I don't think, and Bunge being in recess, I think they should not, buy time with it, because actually having a conversation now this morning, I talked to somebody and he was like, "Are you sure after 21 days this thing is still not going to have its own, set effect and come into play?" So I think Bunge needs to reconvene on the issue of Finance Bill, and not only end at Finance Bill, from the budget process, because the budget it's a budget that brings in the Finance Bill. So I think we need to have a bigger conversation about the budget making process, what needs to be in there, what needs to check out, so that now when you are reorganizing the Finance Bill, it comes back clear And the voices, you know, there's always been a public participation. But how have we been responding to the voices of the public participation? If almost everyone in the public participation felt there was a problem, and then we go and do some piecemeal changes here and there, I think is also not being right
and many
fair
have
to
talked
the
then
members,
of a proper framework for public participation in the country. Let me come back to you, Rachel. Again, a very important thing that you mentioned. And let's just take a look at page 2 of the People Daily. And it says, activists allege that 3 died in Mombasa after protests. But you mention the lack of empathy, in your view, from the president's round table with the media yesterday. And he was asked specifically about a 12-year-old boy who was shot and lost his life in Rongai. The president, first of all, was not very clear which one was being talked about. But his response when he was asked, what would you say to the mother of this child, was, I'm not sure, first of all, that it was the police who shot that boy.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the manner in which he treated the lives that were lost in that interview?
Thanks, Michelle. As I said earlier, we needed to see the president having a human face and being more empathetic, not being appearing to be very arrogant and clueless on what really happened, or he decided to be blinded by what the advisors or the people who informed him, the information which he was given. We have seen the manner in which these young people lost their lives. In as much as you want to paint a picture of hooliganism, some criminal elements having taken advantage of the situation, as he mentioned that there's a young person who really, I think, overpowered one police officer and took the gun to himself. But a question that I asked myself immediately was, if that be the case, then why would I take the gun and shoot my fellow protester? Why don't I shoot the person then who had the gun? Because if my aim as a protester was to really safeguard the lives of the people we were with, even the criminal he was, as the president called him, then we would have seen him confronting the police officers with the gun to allow him actually be able to then be able to continue with these criminal activities. Having said that, I think in all manner of fairness, if a life is lost, one is way too many. And we needed to see the president, first of all, condoling with these people. And he appeared not even to be remorseful that a child as young as 12-year-old lost his life with having been shot 8 times in the midst of the protesting which was happening in Rongai. And if you listen to him, at no given point did he even tell the family that, I'm so sorry that, in fact, I was even mistaking your son to be someone else, which who had, I think he had 8 rubber bullets shot on him. So in its entirety, the president needs to have a human face. Let him not appear to be, because I'm the one on the steering wheel, I don't really care much what is happening, because his focus appeared to be more on the properties which were lost than the lives which were lost in the process. We don't need to lose any life because the president does not want to listen. If you listen to the Gen Zs very well, and it's not just them alone, I think we reached a point as a country where we were saying that whether it is Gen X, Millennial, or whichever, we reach a point where we are saying enough is enough. We've talked too many times. We've done enough reports on how we feel as a people. The direction we are taking is not the right direction, in our view. We are the same people you are taxing. You are the same people you are levying with the housing levy. We are the very same people you are saying, now if the motor vehicle circulation tax passes, you are the same one paying. And remember, all these taxes are levied on the gross, meaning there's no relief at all. Right. So the president, just a second, Michelle. So the president need to, even as much as he wants, as you say, that he's the one in charge and needs to bring us together, needs to restore peace, needs to assure us and even investors that Kenya is secure. Even as you're walking, you're not sure whether tomorrow you'll be shot, and the president says, you know what, you're part of the criminal elements that you're seeing in the country. So what is it that they are doing? It is then the right of Kenyans to protest according to Article 37. It is the right of the same protesters to be protected by the same police who are shooting them. So the president, as much as he wants to tell us that we need to uphold the rule of law, but it is not in segregation that this community needs to uphold the rule of law, but when it comes to the police, then it is okay, you can shoot. But even when we're experiencing these extrajudicial killings, there's just to whatever extent that the police are supposed to use the live bullets on people. So even them, it should be clear to them. I know the president said, no, it is not my duty. I've given them autonomy. I'm not supposed to interfere with the operations. Yes, they are given the autonomy to work, but they're supposed to do that in accordance with the laws that are binding us in the country. We all are alive, that we are a constitutional democracy, yes, and each and everyone must uphold the rule of law in the country.
And that is what the president began by saying, Eshage, that we are a rule-abiding nation, a constitutional democracy. But the front page of the Standard says he was at pains to explain the kidnaps, the deaths, the graft, essentially just absolving himself by saying these are independent institutions. But we live in a constitutional democracy, even for those independent institutions. I mean, he was at pains to explain just that one video of the former Menandi Hills MP Alfred Keter being abducted, and Alfred Keter had since been released last night after he was successfully released from Kamukunji police station by a group of lawyers. But just like Rachel says, how then can you trust the promises being made at a time when the president cannot really explain why we're seeing a crackdown on dissenting voices in the country?
Michelle, I think you know, all these things have happened so fast, all of them together jumbled up. And so the country maybe, you know, and that first, you know, 2 weeks ago when guys said we are going to occupy Parliament. You know, and actually guys thought, these guys with iPhones, I don't think they're going to go anywhere. And then alas, they were in town. And it was very peaceful. I thought that would have been a wake-up call, you know. But again, we still dilly-dallied a bit. We never thought it's going to get to where we are, but here it is. And so I heard the president yesterday saying that he will have a soul-searching moment. And I think the earlier he's able to do it, the better for him, so that he rethinks his communications strategy and his communications team, his cabinet, his choice of guys who run his business in Parliament. You know, all those things need to be rethought, and a clear, formidable way is looked at when it comes. Otherwise, the buck will always stop at somewhere, and it stopped at him. And now, all of a sudden, it's no longer about occupying Parliament. It's about, you know, Ruto must go. It's no longer about, you know, all these other processes that we're talking about. All of a sudden, we're even at the last line that the military are actually in the streets. And so, I think, like he said, soul-searching moment. I think that's also a very good position. I hope that it works very fast, because number one, remember the issue of fertilizer, and the first instance in Parliament. Actually, it was across board that they had lost faith in the Minister of Agriculture, and the votes were enormous from both sides. And then come after, when the report was processed, the day of prosecuting the, you know, the report again, party divides and all those things came into play. And so all those things are the ones that are making people feel we are serious, but we are not. You know, things are moving, but, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. So I think that soul-searching moment, as the president promised, is very important, so that we start seeing things moving. Right. If he needs to reset his cabinet, why not also throw in a couple of names that people have full confidence in their capabilities and their abilities. Because if you look at, I was just thinking about it in the morning, when Obama became president, he looked for, I think it was Sanjay Gupta, the CNN analyst on Medic, and as his advisor, his core guy when it came to health. Come look for people around the country that people inspire confidence as a starting point. And so that people don't feel, again, it's also you come, let's have a conversation. We are not so sure how it's going to say, as you're saying about the NADCO.
Right.
So I think the most important thing is the practical steps that are going to move forward so that the president also creates legroom for him to be able to, look at this thing more and more elaborately.
Right.
Finally, on the issue of the multi-sectoral forum that he's requesting,
right.
I think on the issues that have been raised by Gen Zs, about 8 of them, I think he can actually deal with them without necessarily having the sectoral forum. Quickly work on those ones. Maybe 1 or 2 are the ones that might need to go back to multi-sectoral. Let's have a multi-sectoral forum on the main issues of the whole economic setup, the whole debt situation, the job creation. What are we doing, even at the county level, in terms of inspiring and creating jobs for young people, so that the pressure is not only at the national level, but it also cascades down to the 47 counties.
Right, and we'll be discussing then what the Gen Z want and what the demands are in this conversation. But Rachel, before we take a break, President William Ruto commented on the hashtag Ruto must go. And they said it's a democracy, it's a constitutional right. When you take a look at the hashtag now on social media, that presidential roundtable last night seems to have fueled the intensity of the protests that have been scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday. Why do you think that is?
Thanks, Michelle. As I mentioned, I actually said at the beginning that we are having a discussion now, if I would just use this as an analogy to actually put my point across. The way I would respond to a question you give me would actually enable you give me another question or guide you to what else do you ask Rachel thereafter. So when the president is asked about the Gen Zs, and first of all, remember we moved from criminals, then to we were all actually clumped onto one basket and we were all called criminals. And unapologetically so that even in this second address again, when he was now rejecting the bill publicly, he now said there were just a few elements of criminals in our midst of the protesters. And yesterday, he did not come off the criminal aspect of the angle in which he looks at the Kenyans. And those are some of the reasons as to why people feel like he's not having that human face into what you're going through. Remember even the deputy president saying, let us not eat too much to an extent that we now throw up on people's faces and we feel nothing. And those are some of the things that we were seeing yesterday. That we expected you to come out and say, yes, I'm sorry that you needed me to listen more. I've not been listening. Because that is what has come out clear, that we are not a listening government. You are speaking loud and clear. They've seen that with the Finance Bill 2023, where it was meant to have raised a certain amount of revenue that they did not realize. Instead of going back to the drawing board and analyzing, why then did we put this and it didn't work for us? Where did we go wrong? Even on the issues that have been raised by the Gen Zs. There are things that he can say, yes, let us analyze this keenly. What are the wrongs within it? What are these things that if we were to do today would inspire hope amongst the young people? And I said, look at the people who are protesting. They are a certain age. They're still living in our houses. So these are people who are not paying rent. These are people who don't have families. So they were doing this for themselves for tomorrow. Whereas the people who are suffering are still quiet and watching what is really happening. So when people are calling on to Ruto must go, especially after yesterday, after his speech, is because he did not inspire hope whatsoever.
All right, let's take a break. Let's take a break here on New Dawn. When we come back, more analysis on that presidential roundtable there. We're also asking you what your thoughts are. Do speak to us on X at K24 TV. The hashtag is New Dawn. We'll be sampling your thoughts and comments on the other side of the break. Do stay with us.
agriculture is the engine of economic growth in Kenya. It is the largest contributor to Kenya's GDP. Farming, if well practiced, is a profitable venture. Kilimo na Biashara is a show that seeks to help Kenyan farmers adopt modern farming practices to grow their agribusiness. Join Linda Koskei every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. as she delves into the best farming techniques and technology only on K24. From Germany to your K24 TV screens. Get ready for the ultimate showdown of European football as 24 countries fight for one trophy. This time, the battle for glory reaches its peak. Make sure you catch this and much more on Euro 2024 Extravaganza.